Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for June 19th, 2025. We have so much to discuss today. Let's start with garment scalpers. Yeah, you heard that right. Apparently, there are a handful, or maybe more, who knows, of LDS women in the United States who have acquired a considerable amount of the new garments. I'm guessing the sleeveless top. I would call it a sacred tank top like the national news outlets did, but let's be honest, it still has too much fabric to really be a tank top. These sleeveless tops have only been released in a few select places outside the US, so these women have used their connections to get the coveted sleeveless tops sent to the US in large amounts, and they are now selling them with a considerable markup and profiting off of their fellow sisters' desperation. One such message says, "Hey, I charge $40 plus the shipping, ranges $15 to $30 depending on the size of the box and how much you order, and then the price of the garments." Genius, but also LDS Church. Just let everyone show their shoulders at the same time. Seriously, this is getting even more ridiculous by the moment. Now a brief update on Dr. Julie Hanks. The bio from her website says, "I'm a lot like you. I'm a wife, mom, and grandma, integrating home and work life, personal growth, and relationship growth, all while sorting through messages from my conservative religious background. I've spent too much time feeling not good enough, dealing with mental health issues, trying to heal shame, and trying to please everyone. I want to share what I've learned on my personal and professional journey to set healthy boundaries, become more confident, and feel empowered. I'm also a licensed therapist, owner of Wasatch Family Therapy, coach, author of the Assertiveness Guide for Women, relationship expert, TEDx speaker, media contributor, college teacher, online influencer, speaker, and performing songwriter. I have 30 years of experience counseling women, couples, and families. I want to help you take charge of your life and your faith, develop confidence in your life's missions, and find your authentic voice in your life, your relationships, and the world. It's time for you to take the leap and step into your power. My mission is to empower women across the LDS spectrum to navigate faith and family with a strong sense of self." And on her Instagram page recently, she was asked, "Are you still active in the church?" To which she answered, "I'm not." After being called in by my stake president 6 months ago, warned about my online content, counseled that criticizing policy is apostasy, and told there have been complaints by ward members, I decided I don't want to give away my power anymore. Now let's talk about Mike Lee. Senator Mike Lee, a Republican from Utah, acquired a deep respect for the Constitution early in life, while watching his father, Rex E. Lee, serve as Solicitor General under President Ronald Reagan. He attended most of his father's arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court, gaining a unique and up-close understanding of government. He is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and served a 2-year mission for the church in the Texas Rio Grande Valley. Lee graduated from Brigham Young University with a degree in political science, serving as BYU's student body president in his senior year. He graduated from BYU's law school in 1997 and went on to serve as a law clerk to Judge D. Benson of the U.S. District Court for the District of Utah, and later with future Supreme Court Justice Samuel A. Alito Jr. on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Lee spent several years as an attorney with the law firm Sidley and Austin, specializing in appellate and Supreme Court litigation, then served as an assistant U.S. attorney in Salt Lake City arguing cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit. He later served as Governor John Huntsman's general counsel and reunited with Justice Alito for a 1-year clerkship on the Supreme Court. Lee and his wife Sharon live in Utah County and have 3 children, John, James, and Eliza. In 2014, he gave the keynote concluding remarks at the National Prayer Breakfast, where in part he said the following: "Confidence can come to each of us as we live our lives with ever more attention to the life of Jesus. If we live as he lived, serve as he served, and pray as he prayed, we too will be able to hear from heaven the comforting and confidence-inspiring words as an answer to our prayers. Fear not, I am with thee. O be not dismayed, for I am thy God and will still give thee aid. I'll strengthen thee, help thee, and cause thee to stand. stand, upheld by my righteous, omnipotent hand. I know this to be true. I have experienced this heavenly help and strength, not simply through my own prayers, but often through your prayers and the prayers of others who pray for liberty and peace, and for that I am most thankful. Then, recently, in what would make one think he's forgotten Jesus entirely, on Sunday night, a day after a masked gunman disguised as a police officer shot and killed Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark at their Minnesota home, Mike Lee made posts referencing the attack and featuring images of Vance Bolter, the suspect in the shooting. The first post was captioned, "This is what happens when Marxists don't get their way," and the second says, "Nightmare on Wall Street," seemingly blaming Minnesota Governor Tim Walz for the shootings, which the governor called an act of targeted political violence. The posts were deleted from his account Tuesday afternoon. On Facebook, someone made this comment to Mike Lee. As a young adult, Senator Mike Lee served a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, often called Mormons. He continues to be active in the faith. Mormons believe in the importance of families and living a Christ-like life. They believe God loves and cares for all his children. It appears Senator Lee's political aspirations have caused him to stray far away from these Mormon beliefs. His inflammatory social media posts and jokes about last weekend's deadly political shootings in Minnesota are too vile to repeat. Sophie and Colin, children of Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, tragically lost both their parents. Life will never be the same for them. Senator Mike Lee also has children. I wonder how they feel about their father's response to this horrifying event. Now let's go to BYU for an article that says, Richard Hausman, Dean of Continuing Education at BYU, spoke to students about following the light of Jesus Christ at the weekly campus devotional on Tuesday, June 10th. Using his knowledge of entomology, Hausman used analogies of various insects to teach the importance of seeking out Christ's light and going toward it in our thoughts and actions. Many insects demonstrate positive phototaxis, meaning they go toward light, Hausman said. Moths are especially attracted to light and demonstrate a positive phototaxis. They navigate towards light with a consistent, faithful response. He continued by explaining some insects, like cockroaches, have a negative response and reject light. Hausman then posed 2 questions to encourage students to reflect on their relationship with spiritual light. When directed to follow Christ, how do we react? Do we go to Christ's light like a moth, or do we shy away from him like a cockroach? I'm actually a little puzzled by this. I'm not sure he should have used a moth to a light analogy. Going like a moth to a flame generally describes a negative or dangerous attraction. It implies being irresistibly drawn to something that is ultimately harmful or destructive, much like a moth is drawn to a flame that can burn it. So while it's an intense attraction, it's usually towards something that will cause pain or ruin. He goes on to say, like monarch caterpillars and butterflies become filled with powerful protection when they are in contact with milkweed, we can be filled with power and protection if we stay close to Jesus Christ. He concluded his point about being filled with the light of Christ by inviting students to help fulfill BYU's mission. Becoming BYU will require individual reflection and spiritual growth individually, Hausman said. I invite each of us to become filled with more light than we currently have inside and become individually engaged with achieving the vision of becoming BYU. The phrase becoming BYU feels the most concerning to me in that speech. I've been thinking about this concept a lot lately when it comes to the church. When I was born, I took my first breath already full of love and goodness and worth. And what the church did was take that love and that worth away from me. They took it and they tied it up and they held it for ransom. And then the church told me I could have portions of it back if I paid the price. I could earn my own love and worth back by reading my scriptures, praying, attending church, giving 10% of my income, getting baptized, watching what I said, staying modest, burying my body's natural urges for sexual exploration, spending endless hours in the temple, and so much more. I then spent almost 40 years attempting to earn my worth back from the Mormon Church, until I realized I could just have it. Now, a little more every day, my love and goodness and happiness and all of my feelings live inside me. They are no longer outside of me, being held hostage by an organization that never actually cared for me. So, dear BYU students, don't become BYU. Stop and take hold of your innate worth, the love and goodness that you were born with, and be yourself. Thinking about this reminded me of a quote by Howard Thurman that says, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs," and I would add, the church. "Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Speaking of joy, let's go to this post that says, "Thought you'd be interested in this and may want to look into it. My son, who's 16, just got back from FSY. His mom is still active, but he's questioning. He said there is a huge push of a church rebrand. All he heard was the Church of Joy and said they are heavily pushing this and pushing more accepted general Christian teachings. There was a world concert that was simultaneously being done in America, Brazil, and Mexico." I haven't noticed this happening until I saw this post. Have any of you had experience with this possible rebranding where it's the Church of Joy? I do know that Elder Kieran talked about this in the last general conference, where summed up his talk said the following: "Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, often called the Church of Joy, should be the most joyful people on earth due to God's plan and Christ's atonement. He encourages members to transform weekly sacrament meetings from mere attendance into intentional, joy-filled worship of Jesus Christ, marked by genuine reverence, active hymn singing, Christ-centered talks, and a deep, grateful focus on the Savior's sacrifice and victory over death during the sacrament. Kieran stressed that this joyful reverence should be evident in members' expressions and actions, extending a welcoming spirit to all, and encouraged families and church councils to foster this culture of joy, ultimately inviting everyone to discover and revel in the peace and light found through Christ." This seems a little bit desperate to me. I think the brethren can see that the church is struggling, that people aren't as happy and joyful as they are supposed to be. But instead of making changes that could affect people's lives for the better, they dig their heels in with talks like that one. I recently saw the cover of a book from Deseret Book that says, "When Church is Hard." At Deseret Book, the tippity-top leaders know what's happening, that people are leaving and possibly, dare I say, leaving to find joy. And last up today, let's finish with this great graphic that says, "Things I still experience despite leaving religion: inner peace, togetherness, meaning, spiritual moments, a moral compass, forgiveness, hope and joy, and love." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.